Composer Gloves here, and today I'm going to show you how to make this sound. Now, this started out as a tutorial, so hopefully that's the sound you want. Here's another version of it. That's not part of the sound, it's a different sound. So anyways, that's what we're going for. It's an FM citrus bass. Whoops. But you could do this in like FM8 or whatever. So one thing that you need to be aware of while I show you how I made this is that this started out as just a simple, oh yeah, I'm going to make it sounds like, and then it turned into an entire track. Like literally though, I turned it into a whole track. I've been working on it like most of last night and today ever since I woke up, and it's pretty much done. I've mixed it, mastered it. I've done everything I want to do to it. And as a result, when I take stuff off, you're going to hear it after mixing. And then if I turn these things off, this is before mastering. So it'll, as a result, sound very quiet. See, that sounds way quieter. And then if I take off the big rip stuff, like this is all the post on that one sound. So as I take the sound apart, it's just going to be, I'm going to leave, let me show you the post first. And then I'm going to leave the mastering stuff on. It's just an EQ and some compression going on with a fancy compressor. A couple fancy compressors. Actually, I believe I turned that off at the end of the day. I didn't use that. So that's what you should have. Now, or that's what I have. That's what you're going to end up with, hopefully. So as a result, as you make this, just be aware that those are some things. Oh, I did touch the RM. Good to note. So, because this was like the first thing that I made. So I kind of have to remind myself what I did here. So, okay, so let's go to the post first. So post is pretty simple. Post has an EQ. This is just shaping. This is a mixing EQ specifically to deal with the kick drum. And then this is to deal with the kick drum more. It's just side chaining. Actually, this one's for the snare. This one is for the kick drum. And then the wave shaper, it makes a huge difference. Check it out. Without wave shaper, with wave shaper. So wave shaper is like a big part. Maybe you like it without the wave shaper. I don't know. Now, this EQ right here looks crazy because it also involves some mixing, but you get the idea. You boosted some high, cut most of pretty much everything else. And this is super mega important for the sound design side of things as well, because this wave shaper is taking in parts of this spectrum, and depending on what I change, and this changes how it hits the wave shaper. Now, if you don't know about the wave shaper or FM synthesis, or Citrus, I have series for all of those in a video for the wave shaper and the FL12FX series. So go check those out if you're lost. Now, each one of these pieces, remember, because it is a nonlinear distortion and this is the input, generally your high end hangs out over here. So each one of these parts sort of attacks different areas of your spectrum, and you can augment it using the EQ. So that's what I was doing. And you can get a huge variety of textures. Now, I could automate this EQ, but I'm not gonna, because that would just be a ton. Yeah, I'm done. But I could do that and it would sound really cool. Something to think about for next time maybe. So I got to draw the line somewhere. So, okay, the EQ, this is it. I mean, the wave shaper. And yeah, these bands are exactly where they are. Like this little lump right here changes things simply because different frequencies are hitting that. So that is the post. Now let's look at the actual patch. So this is the actual patch. There are 3 outs, something to be aware of. 3 outs. There's an effect out, a regular out, a dry out, and then a wave shaper distorted out. So, okay, so one's going, it's doing its thing. It's at a thing of 1. Now there's 2 things you need to be aware of with the sound like this. So I was originally going for a whooshy type of sound, sort of like a distorted, smeared square wave. And so I chose ratios that would reflect that, and I used effects that would reflect that. And later on, I turned it into sort of a saw wavy. It still sounds like a square wave, but it has sort of a saw vibe to it a little bit too. So the order here is on 2 simply because I wanted to use the unison as a chorus effect. And it sounds super different when done with the unison, even if you don't use the special parameters. Like, I just feel that this sounds different. So I use this at 2, and these are the settings I settled on. Go watch the Citrus from the ground up if you want explanations on how this works. And then in the effects, I also have the chorus on at a 2 for the exact same reason. And they sound different because this one is a feedback loop. This one is an additive copy. So of course they're going to sound, different. So these are the settings I settled on there. Didn't use any of the other effects. Now on the 1 is just a sine wave at a ratio of 1. Nothing shocking there. It is being modulated. The only thing I'm modulating on this bass is this here modulation X. So this is what's going on here. Not shocking. 2 is also a sine wave. It's been skewed a little bit, and that creates more of a nasally texture. It's at a ratio of 3. Right now, 1 and 3. 1 has a special property because, the identity property of 1. 1 times 1 is 1. 1 times. So, that's the identity property. It's like, whoa, wow, that's cool. 1 can be 1. Or 1 times anything will give you that thing. So 1 times 5 is 5. So that concept is really interesting inside of FM because 2 doesn't behave the same way as 1 for that very reason. Now, I'm just drawing your mind towards that because later on these ratios change, and just go watch my Learn FM synthesis series. So we have 3 and 6. These two are octaves. Now, 3 is a skewed sine wave, and this just came from experimenting and sort of an idea of what I was going for. The modulation's also been linked in 3 also. 3 is another skewed sine wave. It's actually closer to a triangle wave. As you can see, the shape is up. So the triangle wave skewed, and it's a ratio of 6. So 1 octave. And if you remember from my previous Sounds Like video, which these I don't expect you to watch in series as a series, but that FM sound was based on the same idea that these whenever you choose octaves, they produce a more of a tube-like texture. So without the distorted out, you can hear it. See, this out adds a lot to the sound. So this gives you more of a tube-like texture because of the ratios I picked. Now 7, ratio 4. Ratio 4 is at ratio of 7. This is a very special ratio. To me, it's just a sonic, vocabulary. I've heard it, I've memorized, or at least have a feeling for what this will sound like. So I just happen to know what it'll sound like. It's between a square wave and a triangle wave. So it's like a little bit of both. As you can see, it's like a overweight triangle wave. And so 4, now these are in a serial relationship. That's important too. Just go watch the FM series. Most of this is just I should realistically just be able to point out settings, and then you should know what it all does because I have series for everything else. And then 5, and so 5 is a ratio of 2, and this was just sort of at the end. I'm just trying to get some more grit out of it. And so I turned 5 on, and this is all a serial relationship going up to 2. And these change timbre as they're going. So this is important because not only does this change the overall timbre, but this changes how much FM these over here can apply to 2, and same goes for 3. So this relationship stacks up as we get to 1. So you need to be aware of that when you're making changes. You don't have to be, but it's helpful to know that it's there. And 4, now there's a parallel thing going on here too. So 4 is doing it in parallel. If I get rid of 4, it just adds some upper end. Again, all these changes are small because over time, if you watch my low ratio serial video in the FM series, you understand that these things really start to stack up. So we want to be careful. And we're moving timbre here. So huge changes in timbre really fast are bad. It just sounds like a mess. So, okay, so that's what's going on there. The effect out, we've already talked about this. 1 is coming. The filter is off. The distortion's on. And it's just a real light touch. But this light touch makes a huge difference, as you heard earlier, because as soon as we add it, so before, with. It's that's a big deal right there. So this adds a lot of the upper end because it's touching mostly that. This does affect the sound, this flat line, but this is the big part right here. Is that. So that's pretty much the sound in a nutshell. That's it. And then, of course, send it through the EQ. We already talked about these things. So, yeah, you should be able to just look at this, and I've shown you all the settings. Oh, there's one more setting. I almost forgot. The ring modulation. This one gets me because it's sort of a secret menu. I ring modulated it. Actually, yeah, the ring modulation is a big deal. So I have a video on ring modulation and how it works. And so just go check that out. If you must know exactly what is happening here, because otherwise anyone who knows what ring modulation is, that would suffice. It's oh, you're ring modulating. Okay. And I'm ring modulating the filter out, which is another big deal. So that's another reason. Actually, I would blame this for most of the grit. You hear that? So this is most of the grit. This distortion is more of an EQ move. And that provides like more of the texture. RM's great for that, the sum and difference of two waves. So, okay, that is this patch. It's called Big Rip, but I could change it to something else. So yeah, that's it. There's another cool sound in here. I guess I would just want to show you real quick because it's funny. I think it's funny. Okay, here it is. This sound is cool. I'm not going to explain it right now. If you guys want to know, just drop a comment. I'll make a video about it. This is cool because it is just that one little piece. And all this automation and post going on is the reverb. So when you put it in context, it's really cool. It like works out with the chord move I have right here. So here's the chord. So this goes boom, turns down, chord turns up, chord goes down, then the two wah wah comes up, which is this thing right here. And these are all EQ moves basically. These are all, I use the EQ as a sort of a custom filter occasionally, just because it's excellent for that. And what's cool about this bass is I am using Harmless to do it. It's one of these. Which one is Harmless? Oh, it's this guy. I'm using Harmless. And if I change the reverb, listen to this. So that's Venue, right? Let's try drummer. So it's really interesting. Like this, you could use the reverb to, just cool. It's because of the post mostly. So here's the post. Yeah. Post, this is one of those stack layers, keep doing things type stuff. So you see there's wave shaper, compression, EQ, wave shaper, compressor, filter, EQ. I thought there was another wave shaper. Wave shaper, wave shaper. I guess there's only two wave shapers. And I don't remember if I'm using the thing in there. But anyways, yeah, that's that. So that is pretty cool. Now the guy who requested this is just for you. So I believe when you said short sounds, you were thinking of wobbles, because a lot of the tracks by the guy you told me, New Elements, had things that were kind of like that, and he uses massive. Like those were just, a lot of those sounds are just obvious massive sounds. Like I don't expect you to know that, but I like when I hear massive, sometimes it's just blatantly obvious that it's massive. So I was like, oh, that's definitely massive. There was a couple sounds, there were a number of sounds that could have been something else, but there were a number of them that probably, that definitely were massive. And you could accomplish the same thing in Harmor, sort of, but I would go for massive, like if you have it. What else? There was one other thing about that guy. Oh yeah, his drum and bass is sort of more similar to dubstep versus like Liquid or Neuro or just, regular drum and bass where there's almost no wobbles. It's just, sub bass and drums. Sub-Zero has a number of tracks like that. So yeah, I hope I got what you wanted. You were looking for sort of a short thing, and so I assume it was probably the wobble. I heard a couple plucks that he had that I could see doing with Harmor, but it was probably done with Massive again. But hopefully this will answer your questions, because you mentioned FM and you were using Citrus, so I figured I'll do it with Citrus. And yeah, so this just turned into an entire track. So I'm pretty excited about this whole thing. I really like the track. So if you have any questions, let me know. If you have a request on my website, I've got a form for that, so you can go put it on there. I'm trying to do these like sparingly. I really like ones like this because it gives me a lot of free reign to just sort of do whatever I want. So that's kind of cool, instead of trying to hit someone else's sound, which is like way harder. Subscribe and have a blessed day. So that's the first example. So sort of a big chord type lead. Writing the melodies is really specific with this kind of sound design. Here's the second one.